You think you know me.
Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm CDL Nipa. Today we're going to be installing a light bar kit for my Super Chief Limited. This is also going to work on any of the other Chief models. When you get the Super Chief Limited or the bobber, you have to buy this nacelle for the light switch that comes with the light bar. All of this came from Indian directly. This is actually 3 different kits that you have to purchase to do this on the bobber and the Super Chief Limited. If you don't have the nacelle front end like the bobber and the Super Chief Limited, you will not need to purchase this. If you don't use the nacelle, the kit actually comes with what you need to mount it to the triple trees, the switch. So basically I won't be using those parts today for my project. Tools you're going to need to install this: a T25 Torx, a 6mm Allen, a 5mm Allen, and a 10mm wrench, or maybe even a socket. Not sure where we're going to use that yet, but I know we need it for at least one of the bolts that we're using today. So if you have the factory windshield like I do, I'm actually using the handy dandy Allen wrench from Memphis Shades that I had previously. You're going to remove the bolt on this side and also the other side. If you haven't removed your factory windshield before, basically it's just a quick release system that they have a bolt there if you want to leave that in for more security, but you flip both of these up and it literally just pulls forward and lifts off. We'll set this aside. All right folks, the next part I'm going to be working on here, we're going to be taking the factory headlight off. There's the T25 Torx bit underneath here. All right, pull the screw out and set it aside. We may reuse it again. You're pulling your headlight cover off now. Good chance to clean this up. All right. Might want to set something on your fender while you're doing this part, but this is, like, again, I said, it's going to be hard for me to get all this on camera, but I'm just taking a screwdriver and just unplugging this harness. There's just a little tab in there that we're lifting up. You'll notice that if you start working on this, that it should just come right apart, and then we'll set this aside. All right, for the next part, we're taking the whole headlight assembly out. We'll have to pull the wires back through, but I'm using the handy dandy Memphis Shades windshield tool again. Comes in handy to have a little bit longer Allen wrench to get back in there. Be careful with this, because this is another one of your painted pieces. And we'll set all the parts aside. Good idea to clean all this stuff up while you got it apart too. And while you're taking stuff apart, I always recommend taking pictures, so when you go to reassemble it later, it'll be a lot easier. I know this is actually going to go onto the new bar that came with the kit. It's not going to mount directly to the nacelle anymore. All right, you are going to need one other tool too for this part. I'm going to remove this part of the mount because we're not going to use this anymore. This is going to actually mount to the bar, like I said. This is an 8mm Allen wrench. Again, I'm going to put all this stuff aside, clean it up, put it aside, and then move on to the next step. All right, for the next part, folks, you're going to need your T25 Torx bit for those 3 spots. If you have the bobber and not the windshield, then you're going to be just using that for this. For the Super Chief, you're going to be using the 5mm or the handy Memphis Shades tool again to remove your spools. Also make a note that the spool with the gray mount is on the top, and the one without it is on the bottom. Let's take this off. I just find it easier. This Memphis Shades toolkit's pretty easy to work with. I've got a bunch of these laying around because I've used their windshields on other bikes over the years. So again, take these off, set them aside. And of course for this one, I'm using my longer handled one just so it's easier to get in there. It's good to have multiple of the same tool just for space. Plus this is easier. I don't have to worry about hitting the tank with it. And even if I do, I have a rubber handle on it. So pull those off and then pull the bottom one out. Your turn signal does not have to come off because this actually goes around it. See, this piece just actually comes back and pulls off like so. And we're not going to be reusing this again, so do with it what you will. Folks, the next part, we're going to start some assembly here. We're assembling the actual lights now. This is not too bad. Actually, Indian made it pretty easy to put this together because they put little slits right there And then on the lights, there's actually a little slit there. That doesn't hold it in place. That just gives you an idea. It kind of does, but it doesn't. It gives you an idea where everything's supposed to go. This part is where we're going to put the 3 springs in each one. And what they do is they assemble this way. Hopefully you can see this on camera again. But there's 3 of them. Get your part lined up the best you can. You can still adjust it too once the springs are in. It'll hold it in place better. But the first couple springs will go in fairly easy. Let's see if I can get this on camera so you guys can actually see it. This is how it goes like that. There's little tabs on the back of the light. Push the one side in and then put the other side in like that. Again, same thing. The long part of the spring actually sticks out, so that's the part that will be where you push on it, but lock that underneath the edge, snap that one in there. Now it's actually starting to hold it in place a little bit. You're still lined up. It should still be able to wiggle it around a little bit even when this is done. Again, last part, one more time, doing the same thing. This one takes a little bit more work, but these aren't too bad. This is actually easier than doing the headlight on my Scout 60 I did years ago when I switched out to the Sun Pi. But that's it. Headlights are into the buckets, or into the outside. All right, the next part of assembly, we're going to assemble the buckets onto the light bar itself. This uses the 2 larger of the Allen bolts that they send you. The 2 spacers, kind of crown-shaped spacer, or sorry, nuts. And then these 2 spacers that go in the headlight bucket. I believe they have you do this first just because it's a little bit lighter, but I don't know. I feel like I would like to have that on there ahead of time, but these just go in there like so on both sides. I'm trying to do this upside down so it's the right way for you guys to see it on camera. Shouldn't be that bad of a deal anyway, but in either direction. But those just slide in like that. And for the time being, they suggest you just more or less finger tighten this. Get it tight enough for the buckets don't move around, and then you're going to want to adjust these later on. So you aim your lights. That'll be one of the last things you do is aim this and your headlights again. So basically I just got it tight enough so it's not going to move around and bang into my paint or anything once I put it back on the bike. Again, just tighten that down. The fact that I have to buy 3 different things to do a light kit on this is very interesting. But again, these do come in chrome. I know they have the chrome lights, the chrome buckets, chrome bar, and everything on their website. I'm doing everything in black, even though there's chrome and black on my bike. All right, folks, and we're going to put the rubber grommets on the 2 wires quick. They mentioned using a little bit of soapy water to slide these on there a little bit easier. Whatever solution you have to use that helps you do this. This is what keeps a watertight seal on the back of the lights. It does take a little bit of practice to get that on there, but once it's past that part, it's really on there pretty easily. I just stuck it in dishwater, folks. I just ran in the house quick and stuck it in some dishwater and just kind of lube it up a little bit, just to slide them on there over the top of it. And this is where we're going into the back of the buckets now with the wires. There isn't a difference, folks. These aren't, doesn't say left or right on either side. These aren't really your turn signals, so it shouldn't matter which way they go. And then you just get your grommet kind of pushed in there and it'll be sealed up. All right, folks, this next part is just trying to hide some of the wiring a little bit. This can only go together one way. So basically this is like this. There's these little plastic things here. They look like they would screw in, but actually I think you just push them in like that. You can still move the wiring around a little bit too, so that shouldn't be an issue. That's more or less just like a molding type thing to kind of tuck them in there, make them look a little bit better. Again, see how it's kind of tucked in, goes in this way and then comes back that way. We're doing the same thing on this side. I'll move the camera over too. Should be pretty self-explanatory though. Like the wiring will actually be sticking out just a little bit, just to keep it out of your way. Then again, you see where the wire kind of comes out that way, like so. Give yourself a little extra wire. It might be easier to do it that, do it that way. Let's say you should be able to move the wiring around a little bit afterwards just to get it adjusted and tucked away in there, if I can get it in there, that is. But I think once I get it, at least one of these things in there, it should hold it together pretty good. But yeah, these just pop right in there like that. You don't need to screw them in or anything. But that just kind of tucks the wiring in there a little bit behind it, kind of hides it so you don't see it. All right, for this next part, folks, we're gonna put the lights actually in now. Again, there's only one way to do this because we have two little tiny screws, and they do have a little bit of Loctite already on them from the factory. That's where you're going to use your T25 again. The harnesses will plug together, and then you'll pop them in there. Let's see, hopefully you can see this pretty good. The harnesses will snap in like that. And this is where, I almost think you should do this part before adding the wiring to it too, but let's say there is plenty of room in there. Just got to get it in there and line the hole up. Let's say you might have to push them together a little bit. This is pretty small, actually, but do this, kind of hold it in place. Hopefully I'm not blocking your view of it. But this is it for just assembling the two buckets on either side. These can be tightened down all the way. We're pretty much done with this part. Again, it's just the harness only goes together one way. You can see just like that. These will be sealed up in there pretty good too. See the Indian logo goes on the top. Again, you can't really screw this part up because it has the spot where the little tiny Torx screws go in there. And you see, once kind of get it lined up around there the best I can, get the hole lined up, put your little Torx screw down in there. Try not to scratch the brand new paint on there. Okay, the next step is going to be actually putting the factory headlight bucket back on here. I think I'll stuff that wire in there just to get it out of the way for now. There's a couple wires there. One of them is going to be going to the switch. Flip that over so it's easier to see, hopefully. Let me see. But we're going to line the headlight up here. The bolt only goes in one way because it's threaded on the other end. All right, you're going to want to get this tightened down. You don't want to tighten it down all the way though. You're using your 8mm again that you used earlier to take it out. You're going to have to adjust all these later. I'm just tightening them down enough so they don't move while I'm assembling everything and stuff doesn't get scratched. All right, folks, this is where we start the reassembly process, what we did earlier. Now we're going to be replacing the two black screws that go in here with the last two of the Allen screws that came with the kit. What you're going to want to do is get the wiring harness pushed back in here again first, and then get the holes all lined up. Once you get it started though, you should be able to pull everything through here. Oops. Enough to get yourself lined up underneath. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Get your two, I'm going to start my two bolts in there just to get them in place. Probably could put them thread locker on this if you really wanted to. Not sure why they put thread locker where they do in certain spots from the factory and not in others. But I'm going to get my hole lined up. Again, using the 5mm handy dandy one from Memphis Shades. Again, just make sure your wiring's out of the way. Get it started and tighten everything down. These can be tightened down all the way too, folks. All right, next step is you're going to be plugging in the driving lights to one of the two harnesses. There's actually one labeled heated grip, so if you went with the factory heated grips, you would plug it into this harness that's already here from the factory. And then there's another one that's gray with a black cover. We're going to remove that cover, and then we're going to replace it with the gray harness. That's for your driving. All right, what we're doing next, folks, we're getting the new nacelle piece with the switch holes in it together. There's two spacers. The spacers will line up here on the front. This is the blank one. If you had the heated grips, you could use the top one for heated grips, or you could use the bottom. It just, whatever way you want to do it, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to do this one on top, those just push in like that, so now there's a blank there. Later on, if I decide to do the heated grips, I can. I don't really think I need to be able to reach this from the handlebars necessarily, but we're going to run the wire through there now. There's only one way to put these through. See if I can actually line that up for you folks so you can see it like that. And there's your light switch for your lights if you don't want to have them on or you have them on. Let's get them put back on the bike. All right folks, next thing we're going to do is I'm going to put this switch and nacelle piece back on. If you want to, the kit comes with these wiring harness like zip ties basically that push in there, but we're going to be pushing the two connectors together. I don't know if I really want to use that. I mean, you're not going to see it anyway. It's going to be hidden behind the nacelle, and as long as it doesn't get caught up around any of this or anywhere in there, it should be fine. So we're reusing the original bolts and the spools that came out of there in the first place. All right folks, I'm going to do this first. I'm going to actually plug it in first. A little bit easier while I got the room. You may want to tighten the wiring down after that. I don't know. But I know this piece will push in again behind the other part of the nacelle. Make sure it goes in behind. That actually snaps right in there. And then you just have all your holes lined up ready to go. Again, with the T25 Torx, I'll just get everything started so I can get it kind of in place, and then I'll line it up better. And say, get your Torx one started. You can do it in any order you want. I just doing the Torx first because that's the way I want to do it. Again, your spools, make sure this is the spool that goes on the top first with your 5mm, also known as the handy dandy Memphis shades. And then once we get all these on there, we can snug them down all the way and clean up and go to the next step. And just an FYI too, for people that don't have the nacelle and didn't have to have the nacelle switch, you can actually use this. And this is where your 1/2-inch wrench, or your 10mm, wrench would come in. That would screw into underneath the triple tree. And then this is just to clean it up in the back. It just slides in there. But since I have the nacelle, I won't be using this piece. Folks, as far as I'm concerned, this is an option. You don't have to do it. They come with those two little clear pads. That's supposed to protect your back of your lights from your windshield. Not that they're going to touch, but maybe when you're taking it on and off. Again, that's optional. Just clean it up with a little alcohol pad. Again, to me, this is kind of optional too. They have one of the zip ties that push down into the hole back there, and all you got to do is tighten up your wires to keep them out of the way. Next thing is going to be reattaching your headlights. Again, we can add one more of these that are in the kit. There's 3 holes on the back of the headlight itself that push in there if you want to tighten the wires up. Again, I don't feel it's totally necessary, but we're going to plug your harness back in, and then we'll push the headlight assembly back in once we get it all set. And like again, line all your holes up. Headlight should go right back in there. Make sure your gasket's okay. It's nice that they kind of have everything marked and lined up a certain way on here, so you can't really put it in sideways or the wrong way. The gasket should kind of hold everything in place. You won't get any water in there. I've ridden in the rain with this too, folks. There was no water corrosion in this bike yet. So, and then you get your bucket lined up. There's a notch there at the bottom, and this is where you reassemble with your little T25 Torx set screw. And then after this, it's pretty much just getting everything lined up. All right, the next thing you want to do is you want to aim your headlights. Honestly, this would be easier to do at nighttime, but I'm just going to go ahead and get them eyeballed for now, and then after I ride in the dark, I can adjust them later on. Get everything kind of pushed into position. They should be kind of aimed in a downward position, not too far. That way you're not blinding people. But again, I said I'll adjust it later. You're going to need your 6mm to the 2 driving lights. Get them as close as possible. And then you're going to use your 8mm again. And it does fit back in there, folks. Try to get in there the best I can. You're not going to see me actually being able to do it really great, but again, I got it kind of where I want it. There isn't very much room to work in here. Again, just get it in there. You're probably gonna have to make small movements, but hold the headlight in position, push in, and just try to tighten it down the best you can. With your 6mm, hold the light into position and snug it down best you can on both sides. Keep them fairly even. Hey folks, all you got to do now, flip the switch and they should come on. Turn the high beams off, they're actually still on, which is crazy to me. Usually they shut off, at least I thought they would shut off with the high beams on and off. But looks pretty good. Like I said, I'll have to adjust them once I get a chance to take a ride at nighttime when it gets a little darker out. But nice easy installation. Thanks for watching. Got another one coming up next week. Bye for now.